Welcome to For Disturbing True Horror Stories, animated to bring the terror to life. These are real experiences shared by those who lived them. Viewer discretion is advised. My name is Gabriello and I'm originally from Brazil, but I live in England now. This happened back in 2019. I have an older sister named Aine who is 22. She was staying with our aunt in Brazil for her gap year while I stayed in England for school. We FaceTimed every day. One Friday night, we were chatting when Aine suddenly froze, her eyes wide, staring behind her phone. I asked what happened, and she whispered that for the past few days, she'd seen a man holding an umbrella standing perfectly still outside. He had a shadow, so it couldn't be a ghost. I laughed thinking she was overreacting. She ended the call but seconds later sent a video. I watched it but dismissed it as nothing. The next day I went out with my friends Benjamin, Sandra and Darren to the park at 11 p.m. to vape and hang out. Sandra pulled out a Ouija board. I was excited because I believe in the paranormal. I FaceTimed Aine to show her, but her face turned pale and she screamed not to play with it. I ignored her. Sandra started, "Is anyone here?" Nothing. Then I grabbed it and asked, "Is the man my sister saw in Brazil a ghost or a human?" The board flew out of my hands onto the ground. We all screamed and ran home. The next day, lights switched off in the shower. Voices called my name when no one was home, and I woke with bruises on my knees. I told my mom, who called a priest. He prayed over every room and blessed us. Everything stopped. I still wear a rosary and cross for protection. Back in 2019, I landed a job in Tokyo. It was a dream come true. I found a place to live in Setagaya Ward, one of those quiet, almost village-like neighborhoods you see in movies. My new home was an old two-story wooden house. It had character. It felt authentic. I was excited to start this new chapter of my life. But there was one thing that felt ... off right next door. The house next to mine was a stark contrast to the rest of the neighborhood. It looked completely abandoned. The front yard was a jungle of overgrown weeds, and the front door was this rusty, angry red color that seemed to glare at you. I asked my landlord about it, just out of curiosity. He told me it wasn't actually abandoned. An older man, the owner, apparently still slept there from time to time. That information didn't exactly make me feel better. It just added another layer of mystery to the creepy house next door. A few days after moving in, I was unpacking in my living room. I happened to glance out the window towards the neighboring house, and my heart just stopped. In one of the darkened windows, I saw a silhouette, a person, just standing there, perfectly still, looking directly at my house, at me. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Before I could even process what I was seeing, there was a loud knock on my front door. The sound echoed through the quiet house. I crept to the door and a man's voice, muffled, spoke in Japanese. "I'm your neighbor." I froze. I didn't know what to do. My gut was screaming at me not to open the door. So I just stood there, holding my breath, staring at the peephole. All I could see was a dark, shadowy figure. It felt like he was looking right through the door, right into me. He knocked a few more times, insistently, but I didn't move a muscle. After about 5 minutes, which felt like an eternity, the shadow disappeared. I heard footsteps walking away. I waited another 10 minutes before I dared to even peek outside. There was no one there. I tried to tell myself I was overreacting. Maybe he was just trying to be friendly, in his own strange way. The next morning, I stepped outside to head to work, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Scrawled across the wall of my house, right next to the front door, was my name, Henry. It was written in what looked like bright red lipstick. How could he possibly know my name? I hadn't told anyone in the neighborhood. I immediately called my landlord, my voice shaking. I asked him if he'd told the neighbor my name. He swore he hadn't. He sounded just as confused as I was. I spent the next 10 minutes frantically scrubbing the red letters off my wall, my anger mixing with a growing sense of dread. This wasn't just weird anymore. It was personal. A few days went by with no strange incidents. I started to relax a little, thinking maybe it was just a one-off bizarre encounter. Then one afternoon, I came home from work and noticed something different about the house next door. The jungle of weeds in the front yard was gone. It had been completely mowed down, neat and tidy. It was unsettling. As I was fumbling for my keys, I heard a door creak open. It was him, the neighbor. He was standing there, just a few feet away. He was older, gaunt, with eyes that seemed to burn right through me. He started shouting at me in Japanese, his voice full of rage. I couldn't understand most of what he was saying, but the tone was unmistakable. It was pure, unadulterated anger. I just stared at him, completely stunned, then quickly unlocked my door and darted inside, locking it securely behind me. The real terror came on a weekend. I was at home, trying to enjoy a quiet Saturday, when I heard it, the deafening roar of a chainsaw starting up right outside my front door. It was so close, so loud. Then came the banging. Loud, heavy knocks on the door, accompanied by the screaming engine of the chainsaw. I yelled through the door that I was calling the police, but it didn't stop. The revving and the knocking just continued, a relentless assault on my senses. I was genuinely terrified. I thought he was going to try and cut through the door. I did call the police. When they finally arrived, the noise stopped. They went over and talked to him. Can you guess what he told them? He said he was just cutting a branch off a tree that was hanging over my property and wanted to talk to me about it. The police couldn't do much. He was on his own property, and he hadn't actually damaged anything. They warned him not to disturb me again and left, but I knew this wasn't over. I didn't feel safe in my own home anymore. I felt like a prisoner. That was the last straw. I couldn't live like that. I called my landlord and told him I was moving out, that I'd pay whatever penalty was necessary to break the lease. He was surprisingly understanding. A week later, I had a moving truck parked outside. As my friends and I were loading the last of my boxes, I took one final look at the house next door, and he was there, standing in the window, just like the first time. But this time, he wasn't just a silhouette. I could see him clearly. He was smiling, a wide, unnerving grin, and in his hands he was holding a rabbit. Its fur was matted with blood, which was dripping slowly onto the windowsill. He just held it up, smiling at me, as if presenting a trophy. I got in the truck and told the driver to go. We drove away and I never looked back. To this day, I have no idea who that man was, or what he wanted. And honestly, I don't want to know. That memory, that smile, it still haunts me sometimes. Thanks for watching. If you have a scary neighbor story of your own, share it in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more strange and unsettling stories. Stay safe out there. Lila and I were on the phone, and it wasn't going well. Our fights had become a regular thing, almost a routine. This one felt different though. Why do you always lie to me, Marcus? She screamed, her voice cracking with frustration. Honestly, our relationship was a mess. It was a constant cycle of breaking up and making up. This was the 6th time she'd threatened to leave for good. I was tired of it. I told her fine, leave then. You always come back anyway. The words hung in the air, cold and heavy. Then there was silence on her end. A long, unsettling pause. Suddenly her voice dropped to a terrified whisper. Someone's here, she said. I thought she was messing with me, trying to get a reaction, to change the subject from our fight. Stop playing games, Lila, I said, annoyed. But her next words sent a chill down my spine. I'm not kidding. Marcus, I hear them upstairs. Panic started to set in. She told me she was hiding under her bed, her breath ragged. I heard the faint creak of a door opening through the phone. My heart was pounding. I tried to stay calm, to think. I sent her a text. Are you okay? Call the police. It was the worst mistake I could have made. I forgot her ringer was on. The ding of my text message echoed through her room, a beacon in the silence. It told them exactly where she was. I heard a shadow move, a muffled gasp. Her final words to me were whispered, I love you forever, Marcus. Then, the screams started, piercing, desperate screams. Stop. No nitrogen monoxide, please. I heard a struggle, a sickening thud, and then, nothing. The line went dead. I called the police, my voice shaking, playing the part of the hysterical boyfriend perfectly. When they arrived, it was a horror show. They found Lila and her mother both gone. The investigators questioned me for hours. They saw my frantic call log, heard my panicked voice on the 911 call. They saw a scared, grieving boyfriend who had just listened to the love of his life being murdered. They bought the whole act. They never once suspected me. But here's the part they don't know, the part no one knows. Lila wasn't the angel everyone thought she was. She was cheating on me. I wasn't stupid. I knew something was up. So, I started tracking her phone's location. The late-night trips that weren't to her friend's house. The study sessions that were miles away from campus. The proof was right there on my screen. The lies, the betrayal. It ate me alive. She thought she could play me for a fool. She thought she could break my heart and get away with it. She was wrong. So, that night, while we were arguing, I made another call, a call to a friend who handles problems. He owed me a favor. As I sat in that cold interrogation room, pretending to cry, all I could think was, justice has been served. She got what she deserved. All right, gather round, because what I'm about to tell you is a true story. It's not my story, but my friend Mary's, and it happened right on our university campus. Now, our university is pretty unique. It's famous for its all-pink buildings, and it used to be an all-girls school back in the day. And like any old school, it came with its own set of spooky stories. We'd always heard rumors about hauntings. But, you know how it is. You'd never really believe them until something happens. This particular evening, a few of us were stuck on campus late. We were working on a big filming project for one of our classes, and time just got away from us. We were so wrapped up in what we were doing that before we knew it, the sun had set, and the campus was getting eerily quiet. The only sounds were our own hushed voices and the distant barking of stray dogs. It was already past 6, maybe even 7. We were in one of the older buildings, which already had a bit of a creepy vibe after dark. As we were packing up our equipment, my friend Mary turned to me and said she needed to use the restroom. She asked if I would go with her. I remember thinking it was a little strange, but I figured she just didn't want to walk through the dim, empty hallways alone. So I said, sure, let's go. We went down to the ground floor where the main restrooms were. I waited for her just outside the door, scrolling on my phone, not really paying attention. A minute or two passed. Then, suddenly, the restroom door flew open and Mary practically fell out. Her face was as white as a sheet, and her eyes were wide with terror. She didn't say a word. She just grabbed my arm with a grip so tight it actually hurt and started pulling me, almost dragging me, towards the exit. "Whoa, Mary, what's wrong? What happened?" I asked, completely bewildered. But she just kept shaking her head, gasping for breath, and pulling me faster and faster. We didn't stop running until we were outside the building, back in the relative safety of the lamplit paths. Finally, she stopped and leaned against a wall, trying to catch her breath. "Did you see her? Did you see her?" she kept repeating. I was so confused. "See who, Mary? What are you talking about? There was no one else there." She looked at me, her whole body trembling, and then she told me what happened. She had gone into the restroom and was standing in front of the large mirror, just fixing her makeup. As she looked at her reflection, she could also see the row of stall doors behind her in the mirror, and that's when she saw it. Peeking over the top of the very last stall was a woman's head. Mary described her so clearly. She said the woman had her hair tied up in an old-fashioned bun. From what she could see, she was wearing a long, traditional-style dress and slippers. It wasn't just a quick glance. The woman's head stayed there, just looking. Mary said she froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The reflection in the mirror was so vivid, so real. After what felt like an eternity, she finally broke out of her trance, dropped her makeup bag, and bolted out of there. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just another student, or a janitor, but Mary was adamant. The way the woman was dressed, the hairstyle, the slippers, it was all wrong. It looked like someone from a completely different era. Plus, the stall door had been closed, so why would anyone be peeking over the top like that? The story could have ended there, just another unexplained spooky moment. But it didn't. A few days later, the university was holding a fair to celebrate its anniversary. They had set up displays all around the main hall, showcasing the school's long and rich history. Mary and I were walking through, looking at the old photos and documents, and then we saw it. On the wall was a huge, formal oil painting. It was a portrait of the university's founder, the woman who started the school all those years ago when it was an old girls' institution. Mary stopped dead in her tracks. She pointed at the painting, her hand shaking slightly. "That's her," she whispered. "That's the woman I saw in the restroom." I looked at the portrait and I felt a chill run down my spine. It was an exact match to Mary's description. The stern face, the hair meticulously pulled back into a tight bun, the high-collared old-fashioned dress. It was her. There was no doubt about it. We just stood there for a long time, staring at the painting, the bustling sounds of the fair fading into the background. We never found a logical explanation for what Mary saw that night. Was it just a trick of the light? An overactive imagination fueled by the spooky old building? Or was it really the ghost of the foundress still watching over her school after all these years? I don't know for sure if ghosts are real, but what I do know is that I'll never forget the look of pure terror on my friend S.'s face that night. And every time I see that portrait of the foundress, I can't help but wonder if she is still wandering the pink halls of our university after dark. Thanks for listening to my story. If you have any creepy campus encounters of your own, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more strange tales. Stay safe out there.